This podcast contains toilet humour, rude words, and lots of spoilers.
When life gets you down, your car just won't start.
Agony Art.
It's time for Agony Art. If you've reached a dead end, you're not sure what to do.
Agony Art.
Well, Agony Art is for you. At times life is grand, you've got the world in your hands. Then somehow you drop that ball.
Drop that ball.
Instead of watching it fall, give Agony Art a call. Hi everybody, welcome back to Agony Art, the Agony Art podcast in which we try to solve your problems. Not by offering any real helpful advice, of course not, but instead by telling you how those problems were solved in the great art of our age. And while we can't guarantee we'll solve any of these problems, at least you'll be left with a fun reading, listening and watching list to enjoy in your free time. My name is Liam, I'm the jaunty jingle juggler here at Agony Art. Joining me as always are Aaron, our likely lad of literature, and Carl, our infallible funster of film. Say hello.
Hello.
You don't sound much of a funster there, Carl.
Hey guys, film time, yeah.
So before we get into it today, we're going to start off as always by making it very clear that we're not really here to solve your life's hardest problems. All of our submissions are certified 100% trivial or fictional pickles from trivial or fictional pickles, and our advice should almost never be followed. We're really only here to have fun, so if you're having a real hard time, I'd recommend visiting our website for guidance on who to turn to. That's agonyartpodcast.com. So now we've got that out of the way, let's get on with the show, and here is our first problem of the day. I run a Twitch account with 3 friends, in which we all play video games while drinking, passing the controller between us every time we die and respawn. It started out as a bit of fun, just an excuse to get together and drink and play video games we're not very good at. However, now we've become a tiny bit successful, and we have a small following from all around the world that seems to expect us to keep putting out content. That'll be fine, except now it seems that we're falling apart. 2 of our groups don't really get on anymore. One of us keeps talking about quitting and going it alone on a solo project, and I'm here desperately trying to get everyone organised and make it work. And the worst part is, while we've been falling apart, our audience have been telling us our content has been better than ever. I don't think I can live with this stress much longer, so should we all just call the whole thing off, or is it still salvageable? Now, first and foremost, we need to think of a name.
What's the main guy from Minecraft? That's what they all watch on Twitch, isn't it?
Blue Ninja.
Alex? Is that his name?
He has got a name, I don't
Yeah, the
think
main
it's
character
Alex.
is either Alex or Steve.
Steve.
Steve. Let's just keep it simple.
Keep it simple with Steve.
Steve
Imagine
the
if he's not Steve, how stupid are we going to look?
On New Names, in the park the other day, some girl called for her son. I went, De Niro.
De Niro.
De Niro, yeah.
After Robert.
After
Did
Robert,
the kid
yeah.
go?
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
We have a solution in mind already for this problem. And again, it's kind of my fault because there's one album that we've mentioned, or I've mentioned maybe, multiple times, again and again on the podcast. And this problem is so completely covered by this example that I think we just need to talk about it in quite some detail. And that album is, of course, Rumours by Fleetwood Mac.
It's the musical version of On Writing by Stephen King.
Yeah.
It basically
Album
is.
of the show.
Album of the show. So why does this cover the problem so completely, I hear you ask? Well, let me tell you a little bit of a story, if you're willing to hear it.
Only if you rap it like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Rumours was Fleetwood Mac's 11th studio album. It came after the self-titled album released in 1975.
There was a few too many syllables, weren't there?
It was a very valiant attempt, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was beautiful.
It did come after their self-titled album released in 1975. And that album was one of their first real tastes of commercial success. It reached number 1 in the US.
Were they not really famous before that album
Well,
then?
the thing about Fleetwood Mac is I think they went through a few iterations with different personnel. So this might have been one of the first with the few members that
I'm
we're going
sure
to
we'll
talk
get
about.
into it, I think, but they seem to have a real problem with personnel in general, don't
A lot of turnaround.
they? Not turnaround, like Summerfield.
Revolving door, yeah.
Mm.
HR department really needs to look at why staff attrition is so high.
Mm.
So at the point Rumours was recorded, it's fair to say tensions between the band members were quite high. We've already covered this a little bit in Series 1. Keyboardist Christine McVie and bassist John McVie had just divorced. Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks at the time were in an on and off relationship and arguing a lot, by all accounts. The drummer Mick Fleetwood, his wife, had just had an affair with his best friend. So he weren't very happy either. And the press weren't helping. There was like basically so much interest around the band that fake news stories were inevitably coming up about illnesses that weren't true, or false claims that Mick Fleetwood's daughter Lucy was really the biological child of Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. So in general, things weren't great. But despite all of this, like you, Steve, they produced their best work, basically, a record that has been critically acclaimed since its release in 1977 and is still loved to this day. It often appears very highly in lists of the greatest records of all time. It's been described by various critics as one of the greatest pop records of all time, near perfect. Features a lot of bangers, including Dreams, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way, Songbird, The Chain, what a tune, You Make Loving Fun, which was another single from it as well. And half of these songs, I already mentioned before, are actually vicious swipes from one band member to the other. So, for example, Go Your Own Way and Dreams were written respectively by Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. Go Your Own Way being about how Lindsey Buckingham wanted Stevie Nicks to piss off, essentially, and Dreams being about the counter to that from Stevie Nicks.
Clap back.
Exactly. And on the documentary series Classic Albums, Mick Fleetwood described it as the most important album they ever made, since it paved the way for future commercial success and allowed them to carry on making music for years and years to come.
But still, nothing ever surpassed Rumours, did it?
So
Did it, Liam?
40,
Did it?
40 million copies sold.
40 million in its first day.
Yeah.
Your first day?
In opening weekend. 10th biggest selling album of all time.
Oh, my days.
What you got to say about that, Liam?
Clap back to that, bitch.
Clap back. And it's interesting you mention Tusk, because
One of them band members was an elephant.
Lindsey Buckingham, famous trunk.
Your own way.
It was the follow up to Rumours, and it also reached number one, or it reached number one in the UK. I don't think it reached number one in the US, but it was intentionally made as an album that was nothing like Rumours. So they were basically worried that they would get into this situation where they would be essentially making Rumours 2 and then Rumours 3, and they didn't want to make the same album over and over again.
So did they stop bickering and actually be nice to each other for that one?
I'm not sure about that, but they had a lot of experimental music on there. It was a double album. So this is where I struggle with it a little bit, because Rumours is short and sweet. It's 38 minutes long. You can listen to that in one session quite comfortably. Tusk is 74 minutes, and there's 20 songs on it, and a few of them are quite experimental. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so well thought of today. At the time, it didn't go down quite as well, except it still reached number one in the UK. So
What singles are off Tusk? Anyone that are generally known?
I don't know. I don't.
I don't know. You know.
You know the song "I Don't Know You Know" by Fleetwood Whack? No, I think there must be one or two, but I can't name them off the top of my head. I don't think they're that popular.
Singles from Tusk. Tusk, Sarah, Not That Funny, Think About Me, Sisters of the Moon, Angel. Not heard of any of them.
Think about me is, think about me. When you're lonely, do you ever think about me?
Oh. Tusk is just elephant trumping.
And they also apparently went away, recorded the album, and didn't let the label executives listen to it until it was done. When they just gave it to them and said, "There you go, there it is." And allegedly they were all like, "What? We can't sell this. This is rubbish."
Which one? Tusk?
Yeah.
Suppose you can be Billy Big Bollocks after you've made an album like Rumours, can't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Throw your weight around.
So, what's your experience with Fleetwood Mac?
My mum and dad were never fans when I was a kid, so I didn't really hear it much. Because when you're growing up, I don't know if the experience was the same for you two, but you pretty much listened to what your parents listened to.
I didn't grow up, though. So.
You didn't grow up? You were just born an adult, weren't you?
Yeah, it was really, really tough birth.
Devastating for your mum. You listen to what your parents listen to, essentially, don't you? And then you kind of get into that music. So my parents went into it, but more when I was like a teenager, I pretty much only knew the big singles. Like I wouldn't have known any of the singles you just mentioned off of Tusk, because I think every Fleetwood Mac song I knew was off of Rumours.
Yeah,
The Chain and Go Your Own Way and dreams and shit. So
Dreams and shit.
I would say that before about 24, that's all I knew. And probably mostly even now, but I have been to see them
Have you?
at the O2, yeah.
That's incredible.
Since I met my wife, because her parents are really into Fleetwood Mac.
Were they good?
Um,
Were they, what iteration of Fleetwood Mac was it?
They must have been Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham there, because it was pre-Lindsey Buckingham being kicked out, because he's since been kicked out. Don't know if Liam was going to cover that later in the episode.
I actually don't know anything about their reunion at all.
Yeah.
So there's a philosophical question about like a thing being a thing applies to Fleetwood Mac, where if you change every part of a ship, is it still the same ship?
I think Mick Fleetwood has always been a member, though, hasn't he? Because
He's the mast. So my experience with him as a kid, I remember big news at a Brit Awards where Mick Fleetwood was hosting with Samantha Fox, and he's like 6'7" or whatever, and she's like 4'5", and the camera just couldn't cope with it. Like they're both presenting awards, and so that was my first recognition of Mick Fleetwood. And then really, I only remember "Go Your Own Way" via Guitar Hero being a bit of a banger, quite easy to play, and a good song.
We've got a guitar here. Do you want to show us?
Is it a hero?
yeah. Has it
Hero
got
or
four?
non-hero?
Has it got four multicoloured buttons?
It's got these things called strings.
No, too complex for me.
So what about you, Liam? You've mentioned Rumours a few times on the pod, and you've used songs from it to solve problems. But are you as massive a fan of it as that would imply?
I'm going to drop a bomb here. I'm not actually.
I fucking hate Rumours.
I'm not actually that big a Fleetwood Mac fan. But I do think Rumours is a really good album. And all the songs I named earlier, I think, are absolute tunes. In general, I do find them a bit hit and miss. And that applies to Rumours as well. There's a couple of songs on there that's just like, yeah, I can take or leave this one.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about Fleetwood Mac, I think, is they've got free singer-songwriters. So a lot of over the course of the album, they kind of cover a lot of different styles of song. And yeah, so you've got like Christine McVie writing and singing songs. You've got Stevie Nicks, obviously. You've got Lindsey Buckingham. And so you get like quite a contrast. And you get that on Rumours. Like you have Songbird sitting in between Go Your Own Way and The Chain. And it's like a really cut back acoustic love song, like in between these two quite rocky tunes. And I've got a fun fact about Songbird, actually. In an interview with People.com in 2017, McVie said that she woke up... I'll let you decide whether you believe this or not. She woke up one night and the song was just there in her head.
Oh, God.
Everything.
This again.
And she had nothing to record it on. And she was so worried she'd forget it that she stayed awake all night and recorded a demo first thing in the morning when she got back to the studio.
And she can't get no...
And the rest of it was her snoring.
God, people talk some shit, don't they? And they think they can get away with it because they're famous. What you were saying before about very different songs next to each other. I think I listened to Rumours in its entirety for the first time in preparing for this episode. And I was surprised by the kind of... There's not one unified mood that all the songs have. Like, most bands, when they're putting together a new album, they will keep songs off it if it doesn't fit the mood of the rest of the album. Maybe save it for a future album that has more of that feeling, if you know what I mean. But there's no unified feeling of all the songs. As you say, you can have like a banger followed by a bit of a crap song, like Oh Daddy. I've never even heard that song and I thought it was crap.
It's like the penultimate. Is it penultimate or the last track? I can't quite remember.
That doesn't make it bad. I mean, I'll say Oh Daddy was crap. It probably wasn't. I only listened to it 3 times.
Do we think...
That was written about Mick Fleetwood as daddy of the band.
Yeah?
Oh, daddy. Yeah.
Oh, daddy. Do we think a drug-fueled love-hate drama would help us make our podcast better?
This is what I don't really understand, is that they hated each other. It was drug-fueled. And from what I read, they wrote a lot of songs separately. Like Stevie Nicks wrote one of them in bed, didn't she? I think. And I don't think the whole band was there.
The whole band were in bed, yeah.
And it's quite a miracle that it actually got made, right?
Well,
in such a toxic environment.
One thing that I read, and I haven't got the source, unfortunately, but it said that when they were making music together, that was when they actually got on. It was just the rest of the time when they were like socializing or talking like normal people would, that they just couldn't stand each other. So it was more of a like keeping it professional sort of thing. They'd go in, they'd do the work in the studio, and then after that it'd be a case of, I fucking hate you.
It doesn't make... sorry, go on.
It's interesting you say that because The Chain is the only song where all 5 members are credited for writing it. And that's like one of their best works, I suppose, isn't it? Right? So, magic.
Look at Lewis Hamilton. He's always listening to it.
He is, yeah. He loves it.
It does amaze me, though, how people in like bands where they just don't get on, like Oasis is another example, and I think the Libertines, which we've covered before, how they can still make albums and get on in the studio and get it done. Like Christine McVie and John McVie having split up but still working on music together. It takes a certain kind of person, doesn't it, to be able to put that aside and get into the studio and do that. And yeah, it's their job, so it's like going to work. You wouldn't cause a fuck up at work, but they haven't got HR departments, bands, have they? You can fuck it up. Like, they're creative people, so they can throw big strops and not get anything done.
Yeah,
I guess that's kind of the point, though, isn't it? Like, if you view it as work, you don't need to like the people you work with in order to do a good job, do you?
No. So we haven't answered Liam's question. Do we think that if we did a shitload of drugs, maybe fell out with each other, maybe me and you got together, Carl, strictly curse struck, but then we split up, do you think we could make our best series yet by kind of having all that turmoil?
Well, we take the piss out of each other already, don't we? So quite a lot. I think we'd create magic.
Yeah.
With all that bubbling tension.
Would you go your own way, or
I would probably...
Or would you never break the chain?
Probably don't stop thinking
I would
about...
probably don't stop.
thinking about the podcast.
Because it will soon be here.
Yeah.
What about you, Liam? What's your opinion?
I'd only love you when I'm playing.
Oh, daddy.
I don't know. I've got a very cynical personality. Cynical? Skeptical. Sorry, cynical is the wrong word. I've got a very skeptical personality about all of these sorts of things. I'm not convinced that being on drugs and hating each other would lead to anything good at all. Probably the best thing to do would be to stay away from each other.
I think it's a bit luck, isn't it? More luck than judgment. You can't recreate something like that because most people, 9 out of 10 people, if they were in that much turmoil, would produce something shit or not produce anything at all because you just split up and you don't do anything. The fact that they managed to get it recorded and it was so popular was like lightning in a bottle, and it wouldn't happen again.
Basically what we're saying is too small sample size. You can't take this one occurrence and say, look.
What about all the failures? What about all the albums that didn't get made because the bands that were making them had a meltdown?
Agreed.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
What about all the podcasts, Carl, that didn't get made because their podcasters didn't podcast?
It's tragedy, isn't it? Do you know what the world needs is more podcasts.
Although this does entirely contradict with what I was getting at for Steve, which is that if you're anything like Fleetwood Mac, you're probably at the start of the high point of your career.
Yeah.
So we kind of just said that's probably not true. So Steve, ignore the last 10 minutes.
You'll be lucky
and
if it
be
does
optimistic.
work.
Problems. We all got 'em. Problems. We all got 'em. Problems. We all got 'em. So let's try and solve some problems.
So we spoke a bit about some of their other albums. Tusk is the one that always seems to come in at number 2 on like the greatest Fleetwood Mac albums lists. The self-titled album, the 1975 one, because they actually had 2. They had a Fleetwood Mac album. Oh, don't ask me what year it was because I don't remember. But it probably was one of the first ones, I imagine. And then the 1975 one was also just called Fleetwood Mac, and fans call it the White Album because it's white, obviously.
There's too many of those coloured albums, isn't there?
Yeah, it's
Black album,
like,
red album, white album.
There's quite a lot of albums. There's
of
quite
albums?
a lot of albums that either weren't named or they were self-titled or had similar names. So you can't really call them by their actual name. You just have to reference some other
What's
thing.
the
about
Beatles
them.
one?
That's the White Album as well.
So that's, yeah, so...
Because Jay-Z did the Black Album.
He did.
Did he have a White Album? I don't think he did.
No.
Point is, though, why not just think of a fucking name for your album? You've written all those songs and you can't name the album.
Yeah.
That said, I quite like the 1975 self-titled album. It's
What's off that then?
Rhiannon. I don't know if you know Rhiannon.
Fleetwood Mac, yeah, coming at ya. Fleetwood Mac, yeah, coming at ya. I've heard of Rhiannon, but I don't know how it goes. It's one of their big ones, isn't it? If you're a fan of Fleetwood Mac, you like Rhiannon.
Stylistically, it's not too different to Rumours, that album. And I can understand in that context that it makes sense about the whole thing about Tusk being different because they didn't want to just be making the same type of album over and over again.
I think the key to longevity, though, is
changing it up
and being a bit more of an artist
Yeah,
than
Blink
just
182 is still huge.
Yes, they are, Carl. Yes, they are. Bands like that, though, have a revival, don't they? Because people who listened to them when they were teenagers want to go to a tour when they're an adult.
Well, this is what I thought. Was I went to see Sum 41, and I think I've told this. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but I thought it would be people my age, like, oh, Sum 41, yeah, let's go and have some of that. Full of like 16-year-olds on ecstasy, basically. And I turned up in a suit after work. And I looked like the band's manager.
Ecstasy.
With no ecstasy at all. There was a mosh pit. The guy I was with, who's older than me, he was like, I'm going in the mosh pit, I'll see you later. I didn't see him for the rest of the night. That was it.
See you later.
Yeah. And it was crazy. And so I do think, you're right, they do have like a resurgence, don't they?
But they don't have longevity. But at the same time, someone like Fleetwood Mac, they tour now, and really people are only going to see them to hear the classics. Like if Fleetwood Mac put out a new album now, not many people would be going to hear the new album.
No.
They'd be like, play the chain.
So, yeah, well, can you imagine? We went to see Spandau Ballet and Duran Duran. Yeah. If they played new stuff and not old stuff, I would be so fucked off.
Yeah.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because when I'm thinking about this, I always make the connections like Radiohead, because they're a band who pretty much every album they're doing something different, and they're still going. I think I kind of stopped paying attention to them at some point.
Yeah, I think they've put out an album fairly recently, haven't they? But now they're kind of like splintered, and they've got The Smile, haven't they? Which is like 3 of the members.
Oh, right.
Yeah, separate band.
Because what I was going to say was, I wouldn't. If you ever went to a Radiohead gig, I don't think you would expect them to just play the hits, would you?
No, it is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a separation between artists that had a long period where they didn't do anything. I think at that point, that's when you go stale and people only want to hear your old stuff. Radiohead have been constantly going, haven't they? There've been a few years between each album, but it's been a constant.
And their fans would be dedicated fans. Like, I wouldn't go to a Radiohead gig even if they said, we're going to play the hits.
Would you rather go to a Radiohead gig?
Cactus. I'll be there. Play Creep. Play Creep.
Play Ya Ding Dong.
Play Ya Ding Dong.
Would you be saying that with the cactus up your ass? Play Creep.
Yeah. Look what I've done for this. Play Creep.
On the subject of other Fleetwood Mac albums, though, actual friend of the show, George, who we've mentioned once already.
Yeah, we bullied him a
few episodes ago.
Yeah.
It's Mick Fleetwood's son.
Yeah. No, he sent me a message once saying that he knew I was a fan of Rumours from the podcast, but he thought their 1987 album, Tango in the Night, could give Rumours a run for its money. And in my opinion, I think he's right, It's a great album. It's got Little Lies on it.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Tell me lies, tell me lies.
What else?
We haven't sung enough on this podcast.
I've forgotten what else is on it now, but there's a couple of other good. Everywhere, of course. What a tune!
I want to be with you everywhere.
I want to be with you everywhere.
It's worth it for the first track alone. I remember when he sent it to me, I was like, "Oh, it can't be as good as Rumours, can it?" I stuck it on, and the first track is Big Love.
And the rumours were true.
The rumours were true. All the rumours were true. Yeah. The first track is called Big Love, and I didn't really know it at the time, but it comes in with this great guitarist, and he's like, "Looking out for love." So good. So just listen to the first track, and you'll know whether you're going to like it or not.
There you go.
And that's 10 whole years after Rumours, and it's the same lineup. So they were hating each other for 10 years and still putting out pretty decent albums.
Well, they put 2 albums out in between as well, so they were just fucking churning it out.
I hate this, but I keep doing it.
Hatred-fueled content creation.
Which I think, is good news for Steve because it further drives home the advice of, just keep it going and all this success could be yours.
Yeah.
That said, though, Tango in the Night was Lindsey Buckingham's last straw. He basically, after they'd recorded the album, they were having a meeting about the upcoming tour that was going to be after it. And at that point, he just said, I've had enough, I'm quitting. And apparently Stevie Nicks was really upset about it or angry about it because she was like, we've got a fucking tour to do here. What are you doing?
So what did they do? Just get a different guitarist?
Yeah, they brought in, I think, 2 different people.
Oh. Look at that. Imagine that. You quit your job and they're like, he was so good, we need 2 people to replace him.
And they became semi-permanent members of the band. I can't remember their names for the life of me, but I'm sure a lot of people will know their names.
Johnny Greenwood and The Edge, I think.
15 million copies sold of Tango in the Night. So
is that good?
Way less than Rumours.
Oh, way less.
40 million Rumours was.
Would you rather Tango in the Night or Fanta in the Day?
Fanta in the Day. I'm not a big fan of Tango.
No?
Dr. Pepper in the morning.
Oh, out of nowhere.
What's the worst that could happen?
So misunderstood. While we were in Hawaii in June, I went to Fleetwood's, which is Mick Fleetwood's restaurant in Maui. And
does he come out to greet you?
Nah. He does live there, though. But he wasn't there when we were there. But we expected it to be like trading off his name, but not really good food. Like, how McDonald's is trading off Ronald McDonald's name, but in his musical success. But the food isn't, top quality. But it was amazing food. And live bands on both floors. Obviously, I'm not being paid, so other restaurants are available in Hawaii.
In Maui.
In Maui. And all around the world, in fact. There are restaurants everywhere.
Are they really?
Yeah. No, you should try them. They're not all owned by Mick Fleetwood either. Yeah.
It's outrageous.
So he's not only involved in music, he's also involved in restaurant owning and book writing. This is where I come in, Liam.
Oh.
Mick Fleetwood has written at least 2 autobiographies, and they overlap. It's not like different stages of his life. He's retelling the same story in the latter one. He might have written one since then as well. The last one I know about is Play On, Now, Then and Fleetwood Mac by Mick Fleetwood and Anthony Bozza in 2014.
Do you think he read back the first one and just thought, nah, I can do better than that?
This isn't my life. I've got to rewrite this. It's weird though, isn't it, that we live in a world where someone famous can just write multiple autobiographies and know that they'll sell.
Yeah.
Even though I'm overlapping. Like, I'm writing about this stuff again. But the first one was called Fleetwood, My Life and Adventures in Fleetwood Mac by Mick Fleetwood and Stephen Davis in 1990.
Snooker player.
Yeah. So 1990, 2014, there is 24 years of difference there. So although they overlap, there's still 24 years extra in the second one. I just wanted to quote from one of the Goodreads reviews. I haven't actually read this book, but someone quoted, kind of paraphrased it in the Goodreads reviews, and I loved it. This is Megan's review on Goodreads. Says, favourite anecdote from the book: Lindsey Buckingham gets drunk during a show on the Tusk tour and starts openly mocking Stevie's dance moves on stage. After the show, Christine McVie bitch slaps him, throws a drink in his face, and warns him not to ever make this band look foolish again. So it sounds like they were kind of arseholes to each other as well. But as we say, it just worked, didn't it? From what I was looking at, it seems like he's the only one who has written memoirs out of all of them. I should think someone like Stevie Nicks would be a good read, because she seems to have had a mad life. She lived with Jimmy Iovine for a while.
Yeah,
she was going out
with him, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I remember that.
What would your memoirs consist of, Aaron, so far? What would be the key anecdote?
What would it be called?
It would just be called Intense Disappointment. And the headliner anecdote that gets like serialised in newspapers to sell the book would be, this time my friend pushed me through the window of a clock shop.
Timeless.
What a wanker.
Timeless. Nice. For the listeners, Carl pushed me through the window of a clock shop.
I've got no retort. It happened. But I did tell you I would do that.
You warned me before you did it. Well, yeah, that's fair, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
If someone warns you they're going to assault you and then they assault you, is it still a crime?
I think it is.
No,
Yeah.
it's a game.
I don't think I can write a memoir. Well, I could, but I don't think it would sell. I don't think it'd be interesting.
It sounds like Mick Fleetwood did these with a ghostwriter, though. Do you reckon you could just recite your life to someone else and have them write it with you? They weren't
Well,
even ghostwriters, really, because they were named in the...
Right. But if someone's writing it, can't you just tell them to get on with it and ask him, give you a call if they need anything?
Just make it up, and I'll read it and see if there's any bits that I don't like.
Yeah. And I might not even read it.
I might just...
What's your problem? There's no use trying to pretend you haven't got one. The three of us are here to lend a friendly ear and help you out with all that strife that's lately marked your life. Why not divulge it? You never know, we may have tips that help you solve it. We know it's unlikely, but it's an impossibility if you don't share your problem. So one of the reasons, well, another of the many reasons why I think Steve needs to continue and channel Fleetwood Mac's Rumours in his own endeavours is just the sheer amount of kind of, references and people that have talked about how much they've been influenced by Fleetwood Mac as well.
I often think that Haim want to sound like Fleetwood Mac. Do you feel me, dog?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you why I'm
Liam
not
doesn't
sure.
feel me, dog.
I'll feel your dog.
So,
Get your hands off my dog.
because I don't disagree that there is an influence there, but at the same time, whenever I listen to Haim, it doesn't sound like Fleetwood Mac.
Not even when they're going, you can go your own way.
We're
Yep.
sisters and we're great.
That time that they played Rumours in its entirety, actually, yeah, that did sound a bit like Fleetwood Mac. But
Yeah, no, to be fair, I just,
I get that. I get it's a vibe thing, isn't it, rather than a sound thing. I think they're very throwbacky, aren't they?
I don't want to sound out of order as well, because I really like Haim. I might cut that bit just so as not to offend Haim, because there are our regular listeners.
yeah,
They're like, ooh, yeah, you did me so bad.
that's a really good Haim impression.
But I've got a few books that were either inspired by Fleetwood Mac or written about Fleetwood Mac to talk about. Do you want to do films first, Carl? Have you got any films you want to talk about?
Do you know what? There's not a lot. You'd think there would be. Go Your Own Way. It seems to be a popular one. It's also in Forrest Gump when he's running his own way. That bit, and it comes in a quite specific moment. So he just starts running. When he gains followers, it starts playing Go Your Own Way. And I think the intention is that it's inspirational, like, oh, we're going to go and do what you're doing. We'll sod the problems we're leaving behind. We're going to run too. But it doesn't really go with the actual spirit of the song, does it? Because it's a bit of a fuck off your own way rather than, you go, you do you, boo. It's not really that kind of vibe,
but when
is
you
it?
listen to the song, that is what you feel like they're saying.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really inspirational song as well,
Yeah.
doesn't it? It's like you can definitely imagine it being on like one of those public speeches where people are trying to get people motivated about something. You can do it. You can go your own way.
Who's doing the speech?
The Honka Chonka.
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone. Why not?
Yeah, no, exactly. But you don't know that the message is...
I suppose you don't often go and read the backstory to a song, do
No.
you? So yeah, it does work in that regard. Dreams is in Eat, Pray, Love.
Don't you think it's a bit weird? This is maybe a good time to talk about it. How they're like praised for this amazing album they made, but one of the biggest songs in it is a cover of a Cause song.
No, it's outrageous, actually, isn't it? And they changed the name to try and hide it, didn't
Can't
they?
even write to... Did they?
Yes, thunder only happens when it's raining. This is the Cause one, no?
No, I think it's still called Dreams when
No,
the
it's
Cause
not.
did it. No, just no.
You're wrong there, you're wrong. Well, the biggest use of a Fleetwood Mac song is Formula 1 with the chain.
Boom. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum.
Do you reckon, have we not discovered that Match of the Day theme is actually a song as well by Fleetwood Mac?
Yeah, it's on Rumours.
Is that...
Yeah.
Go your own way.
But actually, a recent film, which I didn't really rate, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
I thought you did.
Yeah,
rate
you don't
Guardians
like
of the
Guardians of the Galaxy for some reason.
I
do
like
you?
the first one a lot.
Yeah?
A lot. And I think that's why the second one disappointed me.
Mm.
So I don't think it didn't do it for me.
No,
Didn't blow my trumpet.
I really liked it.
Did
so
you? Really
yeah,
liked it.
Just
It's
must
even
feel,
got Kurt Russell in it, though,
it must
as well.
feel
no?
weird being wrong.
It's just not. I'm just not used to it. But if you scroll to 1 hour 50 in towards the end, the final battle between Peter Quill and his dad Ego.
Mm.
Yeah. Played by Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn's husband, and Kate Hudson's dad.
71-year-old virgin Kurt Russell.
Ego has got Peter Quill trapped, and
I just looked up Kurt Russell's age to see if I was right.
You-
I was right. I got it bang on.
Bang on.
71.
Oh, what a legend!
Look at that.
Nice. So Peter Quill's trapped by Ego, like with loads of godly kind of tentacle things. He said testicles then. Trapped by
Godly
his
testicles.
godly testicles. And the chain starts. Which bit of the chain? It's not the Formula 1 bit, it's the other bit. Bring us together, I think.
Mm.
From memory. I watched it this morning, fucking hell. And then he starts thinking of his friends, and like, it's a really shitty montage, actually, like
Yeah.
hugging Batista, or whatever his name is. What's his name? Drax.
Drax,
And, like, you know, having fun, laughing. No, it's actually shitty. And that gives him the power to unleash the god in him, his god balls.
His godly testicles, yeah.
And he starts to fight God versus God with Ego.
Just slapping their testicles together.
just ball bouncing. And I don't know whether they meant this on purpose, but as I mentioned earlier, this is the only song to credit all 5 band members for writing. And so it kind of suggests that by thinking of all of his friends, it's giving him the power, you know, they're better together. And it
Do you reckon the decision was that deep?
No, I don't.
Or someone just liked the song?
Someone liked the song, yeah.
So we could make it come back to the problem a bit. Steve
It does,
should-
yeah, they're better together. And they need to forget about the
bullshit.
and realise that, you know, they're
Slap
successful.
testicles.
Snap your balls together and get on with it, boys.
That's my motto.
But yeah.
Yeah, similar kind of story with fiction. I was thinking when we were talking about doing a whole episode on Rumours, I thought there would be loads of books that were like, I was so inspired, but I was listening to Fleetwood Whack the whole time I was writing this. But I did find one, Daisy Jones and the Six, which is a novel about a legendary rock band in the 1970s.
My wife has read this.
By Taylor Jenkins Reid. And it's, a novel about a legendary rock band in the 1970s and the reason behind their split at the height of their success. I haven't read it, but a lot of people have, and it was all over Bookstagram. Bookstagram, in case you don't know, is a community on Instagram of people who just post pictures of books and shit. It's all very...
I thought it was like a stripogram.
Yeah, someone comes around dressed in books and takes them gradually off. But you have to read
them.
You have to read them in order to see the person naked. It's shit.
It takes a number of weeks.
Anyway, apparently it was heavily influenced by Fleetwood Mac's story. On HelloSunshine.com, Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote an article called How Fleetwood Mac Influenced Daisy Jones and the Six. And I'll put a link to that in the episode notes. But in this article, she says, for one split second, truly a slice of a moment, Lindsay put his fist under his chin and looked at Stevie as if she was a miracle. And I thought, oh, they're in love with each other. She's talking about watching footage of a Fleetwood Mac concert, basically. Imagine my surprise when my mother later explained that, though they had once dated, they weren't together anymore. This completely defied logic to me, but they love each other. I saw it with my own eyes. When I decided I wanted to write a book about rock and roll, I kept coming back to that moment when Lindsay watched Stevie sing Landslide. How it looked so much like two people in love, and yet we'll never truly know what lived between them. I wanted to write a story about that, about how the lines between real life and performance can get blurred, about how singing about old wounds might keep them fresh. And it's a lot of what we were saying earlier, isn't it? About even though, you know, you've been in relationships, you've split up, there is all this animosity between you, you can still turn up to work and do that and kind of enjoy moments like that, even though you've banged.
She bangs, she bangs.
Oh, baby, she
Moves, she moves.
I did read that during the recording sessions for Tango in the Night, apparently Stevie Nicks was not entirely present, and when she did show up, she'd like record some vocals and then she'd leave, and Lindsey Buckingham would basically delete them all because they were terrible. It was like at a point where I think there was a quote that said something along the lines of, everybody was at their absolute worst when we were recording that album.
What do you think the premier Fleetwood Mac tribute band is called?
Rumours. You talking in the UK?
Yeah, well, there's two. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Rumours of Fleetwood Mac.
Rumours of Fleetwood Mac. They're really good, actually.
Are they?
They're on YouTube.
Why would you, if you were in a tribute band, would you dress as the person you're tributing?
Yeah, it'd be full stars in their eyes. I'd have Matthew Kelly come on and introduce us.
Don't most tribute acts do that?
They do that though, but
Yeah.
I just think it's a bit strange.
Yeah.
The other one is Fleetwood Back, which sounds shit.
I would have called it Fleetwood Crack.
Fleetwood Smack.
A Prodigy / Fleetwood Mac crossover.
Yeah.
Fleetwood Smack My Bitch Up. That was a fiction book, but there have actually been some inside stories written. Storms, My Life with Lindsey Buckingham and Fleetwood Mac by Carol Ann Harris. Carol Ann Harris was Lindsey Buckingham's girlfriend from like the mid-70s to the mid-80s. John Bergstrom wrote in Pop Matters, throughout the book and the relationship it chronicles, the elephant in the room is the emotional and, more shockingly, physical abuse she claims to have suffered at the hands of Buckingham. Is Harris describing isolated drug-fueled incidents that seem endemic of the time and culture she was living in, or serial criminal abuse? Can she be trusted, even sympathised with, or is she out to make a buck? There was also Making Rumours, the inside story of the classic Fleetwood Mac album by Ken Kalat and Steve Stiefel. Oh, I probably murdered those names. I'm so sorry. For people this is one, sounds like it's for people who are more interested in the creative process than the band's like drug and sex-fueled drama. It's written by Rumours co-producer and engineer. And apparently it goes into fascinating details about sound design and recording. Things like how the hi-hat was made to sound so splashy in Dreams. That's quite technical. And how John McVie came up with the bass line for Oh Daddy. Apparently, he might have been trying to imitate whale calls, but Kalak can't be sure because McVie was drunk most of the time and stormed off whenever anyone complimented him for being inventive, which is weird. But, you know, if you like a bit of drama, there is still a little bit of drama in this one. So when you make a piece of art that is this big...
How big?
This big. Well, actually, yeah, original release was about that big.
Yeah.
But then they got it down to about that big, and now it's just on the internet. It's not even big. When you're making it a piece of art that's this popular, everyone around you basically is going to want to make a buck out of it, aren't they? And some of them justified, really. Like co-producer and engineer, they probably didn't make that much money from the album.
No. And I
Might
suppose
as well release a book about it.
if it was like drug-addled as well, like you could say whatever, and would they even remember what's going on?
They can't deny it.
No. I have a question which you probably don't know the answer to, and I don't either, but...
Is it a pop quiz arsehole without an answer?
Pop quiz so how influential are drugs in the output of what you're doing? So like we spoke about Libertines, didn't we, where didn't they say the drugs made the music good? Was that right?
I don't think they said that.
Okay, didn't say that. But like they're another band where there's lots of drugs going around.
Yeah.
Do you think they could still produce the goods without the drugs?
I reckon they would probably make better music if they weren't on drugs.
Ooh.
I mean, I haven't seen any studies that prove that, but
How much better could Rumours be?
I just don't believe. I told you before, I'm quite skeptical about these things. I don't believe that if you're off your face, you're making good music.
What about when
You're probably
asleep?
just like shaking in the corner, aren't you?
It's true. That's what I would think. But they seem to produce good stuff.
Maybe you wouldn't have had the ideas that you had if you weren't off your tits.
Well, shall we have a little roundup of where book, music, and film might help them? Like mine was quite clear. You're better together through Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah, I think that was my story really as well. Like, the point is that you might think that these drugs and dramas are making your work better, but if you clean up your act a bit, come together again, remember what made it special. It's more likely to last long as well, because you won't be kicking members out of the band and stuff like that. Bit more continuity.
And the drugs don't work. They just make you worse.
But I know I'll see your face again.
That's completely off topic, Liam.
Yeah, I mean, all I've got to do is just point at Rumours, really, for this episode.
All I want to do is have some fun.
All I want to do is do it. Do it.
Big girl. You know, like Steve, I've already said, mate, that just to keep doing what you're doing, because you're at the best point in your career, and it's only going to get better from here until in about 10 years when someone will leave and it'll get worse. But then a few years later, you'll have a reunion tour. So it won't be too bad, and you'll probably make money for life.
Do you think you know when your best years are, or do you only know after your best years are gone?
Got to be in hindsight, innit?
You don't know what you've got till it's gone. They've paid paralysed.
All right, so I think that just about exhausts our knowledge banks on the Rumours front, but hopefully, Steve, we've convinced you that you've got nothing to worry about. And if you listen to some of the advice we gave and just keep at it, stick together, maybe try not to take drugs, you'll probably be fine.
Don't stop thinking about tomorrow.
You'll soon be here. Yesterday's gone.
Yesterday's gone.
Oh, daddy! Don't know how that song goes.
So, don't forget to check out the episode notes or agonyartpodcast.com, the website, to find links to all the media we mentioned today.
Oh, don't go your own way, Steve. Stay with the boys. 4-1. 4-1.
10 minutes late.
Cole,
Yeah.
you never interrupt the script.
You interrupted my intro because I ad-libbed.
Check the episode notes or the website agonyartpodcast.com to find links to all the media we mentioned today, and you might even find a link, or maybe not, to the Agony Art Spotify playlist. We're still not sure, where you can listen to all the songs, maybe. If you have a problem you'd like us to attempt to solve, you can reach us on our group Instagram and Twitter accounts at Agony Art Podcast, or on the submissions page on our website. As always, I would like to thank our resident Agony Aunts for their contributions. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Carl.
That's all right, no problem. Don't worry about it.
It's not a rumour. This is a sick podcast.
And thank you for listening. All the rumours are true. We'll be back next week with more problems to muddle our way through. That rhymes. And more entertainment for you to check out. I will see you then. Goodbye.
You can go your own way.
But I'd suggest keep it light, 'cause their advice can be shite, and they won't be held liable. Oh no, not at all, not here at Agony Art. Agony Art.